Hello and welcome to Just Onside. It's Tuesday, following a massive result yesterday. I am going to say it's a massive result because Arsenal won, but there is a caveat. They only won 1-0. So there's various permutation. We'll talk about that later on, OS. But before we crack on with the show, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing good, Ayub. Thank you very much. Short night, as you would imagine, but short nights are fine if it means sealing the deal. Next week is 4 days of holiday due to the second Eid of the year, so Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. The benefits of living in a Muslim country predominantly. So yeah, no, looking forward to a little break, but no doubt it'll be punctuated or sandwiched between two huge nights. For Arsenal Football Club, last game of the Premier League title, Premier League season, and then obviously Budapest the following Saturday night. So yeah, a lot of things to look forward to, Ayub, and a bit of rest in between as well. How are you doing, mate?
Not too bad at all. I'm in really good spirits. uh, I did put on. Uh, I thought the Leeds games, but I'm not sure what. There's some Indian movie going on in the background, so
Oh,
I've
hang on, hang
absolutely,
on, hang on.
yeah,
What kind of
I've,
what
I,
kind of Indian movie are we talking about?
I've absolutely no idea what the hell that is. But
Love
never
it.
mind, never mind. I did put in loads of Leeds games because I was celebrating the fact that we stayed up. But that's at the bottom of the table. What I want to focus on is I'm doing very well, but I want to focus on more sort of on you and more your beloved Arsenal. I mean, I talked about yesterday's result being, I think the win was the key, but I also sort of said there's a caveat because you only won 1-0 because I think now it means that the goal difference is the same. Man City played today, albeit even if they win, which it's not a gimme. It's going to be a tough ask, but Bournemouth are still playing for something. But I expect them to win the game. They will have an advantage in terms of goal difference, which then means if City are to win the last game, uh, you have to win. I think if you had a better goal difference, there may be a probability where you could draw. But obviously now, if Arsenal, if Man City do win, it means that you must win. I'm expecting Arsenal to win. I think Crystal Palace are safe. They've got their sort of minds on the European Cup final. So it should be a foregone conclusion that they should win. But at least there's a little bit of now uh, sort of doubt that it's not as a foregone conclusion as it would have been. So, what's your thoughts? Were you disappointed that it was only 1-0, or were you just happy with the result?
Yeah, Ayub, the scrutiny and the tension, I would say, watching Arsenal right now increases game by game. You're getting closer to the finishing line, and is as is very typical of Arsenal right now. They're doing it in what is kind of emblematic of what their kind of MO and their playing style is, Ayub, in terms of what they essentially stand for. They're I would say a stodgy offense in terms of the offensive output. Although yesterday, first off, at least you saw some attacking potency in terms of some of the passing movement that they showed. But ultimately, Ayub, this comes down to the fact that this is a very strong defense, an
Mm,
incredible defensive outfit. Actually, if you look at the statistics, they are by far the best defensive team in Europe, by all intents and purposes, Ayub. And they are leaning on that to get them over the line. Now, that's four clean sheets, Ayub, in the row after the Etihad defeat. That's Newcastle, Fulham, West Ham, and Burnley. And when you are going for the Premier League title, or your first time in 22 years, although none of those teams are, let's say, in the upper echelons of English football right now, you'd still expect to have some nervy moments, which they did at West
mm,
Ham, especially. But ultimately, four clean sheets, and you would think they're probably going to need a fifth if they are going to land the first Premier League title in 22 years. I mean, look, just on the game itself, you're right. There's no doubt about it. It was a game that they needed to get in control of quickly in terms of perhaps being 2-0 up at half time. I was one of those, actually, probably the few ones of you that didn't agree with the decision to start Odegaard and Eze together. It feels logical in a game where you think you might be able to get some goals that you play two of your best attacking midfielders. It stands to reason, but I actually think Miles Lewis Skelly, especially in terms of the smart passing through the lines and his starting positions would have actually been a better starting position, I think, for Arsenal in terms of being able to use maybe coax Burnley out a little bit, but then punching through the lines. If they got to 2-0 at halftime, I think then you may have seen a little bit more attacking intent from Arsenal. You're absolutely right, Ayub. The Jeremy Doku goal away to Everton. At the time, I felt it was big, and it's proven to
Mm.
be the case. That goal essentially meant that Arsenal could not draw a game and still, let's say, have it in their hands. In addition to that, they really needed to hammer one of these teams. Now, Fulham, if
Mm.
you remember, it was 3-0. They missed some great opportunities for you to make fours and fives. There was that one opportunity, if you remember, I spoke about it, where it hit Leno's head literally and then went onto the
Mm.
boy. He had no idea. And I remember thinking at the time that was big. You think about the Gyökeres misplaced pass for Saka. I think was it against Newcastle, which would have made it 2-0, potentially going one-on-one with the goalkeeper. These were all felt to me like big moments. And when Doku equalised, I just felt that it took away the option, obviously, for Arsenal to
Mm.
potentially draw a game. If they'd yesterday uh, hammered Burnley, which you sense if this game was game week 3, game week 4, they might have done. I think they played Leeds at
Mm.
home, didn't they? Game week 2, game week
Yeah,
3,
yeah.
if memory serves. You'd have fancied Arsenal to do a number on Burnley. But in
Yeah.
some ways, Burnley, and give them credit, they turned up. They were very professional, very organised.
Mm.
I think there is some merit to the idea that it frees you up a little bit because you're perhaps not laden with the stress and anxiety of trying to survive in the league. You're already relegated. What else is the experience of playing at the Emirates in front of an expectant crowd? You try and play kind of party poopers. I mean, it's all there for you, so to speak. So
Mm.
I think Arsenal missed the trick. There's no doubt about it, Ayub. I think if they managed to get a thumping win yesterday, that would have most likely put another result in their favour in terms of being maybe able to draw
Mm.
at Palace and still having some leeway where City would be then forced to not only beat Bournemouth by maybe 1 or 2 goals, but also then maybe Villa by a couple of goals as well. So you're just giving yourself more flexibility, aren't you? Now, listen, the win is a win is a win. I thought they did enough to win the game, to be honest. It came from a set piece. Again, very typical Arsenal in terms of leaning on that to get the different, to make the difference. I would say, but second half was again very. They had some moments early on. I don't know if you saw the Eze chance. There were a few other situations where you felt again if they'd scored in that first 5, 10, 15 minutes, maybe that game does end up 3-0, 4-0, maybe even
Mm.
5-0 because Burnley's heads probably would have dropped. Creating opportunities against Arsenal is hard enough. Being 2 goals down and trying to get back in the game is nigh on impossible against this defensive outfit. So look, it's a win. Obviously, we'll speak about tonight's game shortly. It was a great crowd, a great atmosphere. You saw before the game. Arteta spoke after the game as well about what this crowd and the transformation, he called it, he's seen at the Emirates Stadium. He spoke, you just very quickly before the game, he gave an interview speaking about how and I remember the game when he was Guardiola's number 2, days before he took the Arsenal job. He spoke about how the Emirates Stadium was half empty, that it didn't feel like this was a project that could sustain any relative success. And from that moment on, when he agreed to take the Arsenal job, it feels like this is the very kind of culmination and
Mm.
crescendo of all of that great work. Now, I think I just want to say, and this is not necessarily kind of jumping the gun a little bit, I think he's proven that he has what it takes. Now, I know you have to seal the deal, but it's a game in your hand to try and win away from home. Yes, it's a difficult game. I think Palace actually, Glasner was asked about it. I think chances are he's going to play a decent team, irrespective of the Conference League final. He was put under quite a bit of scrutiny, actually, in terms of the line of questioning about the team he's going to play. But ultimately, if you want to win the Premier League, Ayub, it should be difficult. It should be hard. There should be challenges. I think there'll be more drama if City win tonight. I think there'll be more drama on the final day as well, Ayub.
Mm.
Who knows? Arsenal have to dig themselves out of a 1-0 hole. And there were some signs yesterday that I'm not so sure they've got what it takes perhaps to recover from, let's say, a goal down type situation. But again, that's for another day. They've put themselves in a wonderful position, Ayub. They've recovered from that Etihad defeat. with 4 wins on the bounce, clean sheets, and what have you. And if they keep another clean sheet next Sunday, I'm confident that they'll find what it takes to find themselves a goal or two away at Palace and land themselves that first Premier League title. I'll finish it with this, Ayub. I think the Arsenal story right now, given the journey that they've been on with this manager, with this group of players, and just the general story about obviously Pep and all the rest of it, the two different conclusions that Arsenal seasons couldn't have more profound kind of storylines and outcomes. On the one hand, you've got if you win the Premier League title, and let's say you double that up miraculously with an amazing Champions League victory. Can you imagine what this Arsenal team would be like in terms of the
Mm.
years to come? Arteta suddenly becomes, I mean, he'd be regarded as one of the best coaches in Europe. There's no doubt about that. But in terms of the support he would get from the management, the ownership to go big, to go strong again, to try and see if they can challenge and dominate as what appears to be a little bit of an opportunity in terms of the kind of managerial environment right now in the Premier League. So on the other hand, you've got this other one where things don't go so well tonight. Things don't go so well on Sunday. You lose against PSG, who will be the favourites, and suddenly the kind of the players, the morale, the confidence. I mean, can you imagine most of those players are going to the World Cup? You could just think about the confidence of those players if they go into the World Cup kind of empty-handed, and the narratives that that would bring, that a season that promised so much yet yielded no trophy. So yeah, a huge divergence, let's say, of storylines and conclusions to Arsenal season. They'll be hoping that it's a positive one and they take that first step next Sunday. But for the most part, they've done their job. It's one game, one win away from etching their names in history.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's highly unlikely, improbable that they won't win the league. I think the City Everton result, albeit it was a massive goal equaliser, I still think that the fact that they didn't get 3 points was uh, that probably will be. I mean, you can't just look at one individual game, but really, I suppose towards the end of the season, there's defining moments, and I think that probably rather than the moment, the game itself will be the defining moment because it's a game that they controlled. Arsenal have done exactly what they need to do. They've just churned out the results. As I said, the it was just the fact they won 1-0 because a 4-0 win, a 5-0 win probably would have meant that even if City win their remaining two games, uh, they could have afforded almost a draw as well on the goal difference, and I think that just keeps it interesting. And I think it's a strange one because I mean at the moment we can talk about Arteta. I mean, if he wins, which he should do, the league, uh, and there's a high probability he could win the Champions League as well. I mean that will be. I mean I've been hugely critical. And I probably still will maintain that criticism because he should have done it earlier, but uh, better late than never because that would be a crowning glory and really a vindication the fact that this guy is a damn good coach, albeit he's had sort of some wonderful talent to work with, and obviously there is that sort of argument that he should have done that earlier, and obviously it's one that I subscribe to. But no matter if he is to win the league and the Champions League, it will be just a phenomenal. I think even if he just wins the league, it will be a phenomenal accomplishment, and I think it sets fair for the years to come. On the flip side to that, I mean, it's highly improbable, but if they end up not winning the league, I think it will be catastrophic. In fact, I probably think that this will be so damaging psychologically that perhaps it will be difficult to recover because I mean, obviously the sort of what goes around is the bottle jobs, and this would be. I mean, it they've never been this close. I mean, it's they can smell the Premier League, and I think if they're to blow this, I would find it very difficult that they will be able to recover. In fact, I'd go as far as sort of say maybe a top four finish will be a challenge next season, because the scars will be far too great, far too deep. So on that, I mean, just going back on that, just touching on that, do you think if they don't, I mean, we're talking about something which is highly improbable, but if it does happen where they don't win the league, what do you reckon the repercussions will be, and what do you think the fallout will be?
Very well said, Ayub. What I would say is, listen, I don't want to get too sentimental about this, but sport is ultimately about falling short and overcoming adversity to then, kind of rise to the very top and become a champion. And in many sports and storylines, there is this kind of consistently falling short before you come up trumps. It's not always the case that you come straight out of the gun and you start winning things, in a sense. Now, to some extent, if Arsenal do it on Sunday, that'll make it in some ways even more sweeter, so to speak, that you actually went through those difficult times where, let's not forget, that it took City to the final day a couple of seasons ago when Arsenal were playing home to Everton. I think City were playing home to West Ham and they won, which meant Arsenal finished second. But I think there is some, I guess, sweetness, so to speak, if you do overcome the constant falling short and then climb that mountain. I think there is something beautiful in that. Now, look, but I agree with you when you've got it in your hands. Now, look, it's not one of those situations where Arsenal have had, let's say, a 12-point lead dwindle down to a
Mm.
9-6-3, and then before you know it, you've lost the league. That I think is catastrophic, and it's definite signs that they've not dealt with the situation well. But I would argue churning out 4 clean sheets and 4 wins straight after the Etihad defeat
Mm.
is sign that this team has what it takes, and that's why I made the argument earlier that I don't think, and I just say this in a humble way, but I don't think the last game is a referendum on Arteta, so to speak. You've got to handle the emotion. You have to see it as a wonderful opportunity as opposed to a day laden with risk and anxiety. Now there will be anxiety. That's just human nature. You've fought so hard as players who are the most important stakeholders within a football club. They're the ones out on the pitch trying to affect results, and they've worked for this for some of them for the last 3, maybe 4 years. So you can't tell me that something that you've been so desperate to get your hands on over the last 3, 4 years, suddenly you're going to be bereft of any worry, stress, or anxiety. So there will be that on Sunday. In terms of the ramifications, if they don't manage to get it done, if you remember early on when we used to shoot a couple of years ago, we had that famous, I think, Q&A question, that pushback with Badge, if you remember, where he said Arsenal will never get a better chance. And I pushed back to say, well, this idea that everybody else is going to improve, why can't Arsenal improve? I mean, they
Mm.
don't. They don't. Nobody's got a monopoly on this idea of improving, um, and it has proven to be the case because Arsenal then, in seasons afterwards, got close. I don't think they were close last season, by the way, but they are right there on the cusp and what have you. Now, in this scenario, I do agree with you. I think not seeing Sunday through somehow, some way, it doesn't matter what it is, like ugly, drama filled 94th minute, although I'm not sure my ticket could take that. But but whatever it is, I cannot see a scenario, and I'm not one to put too much sentiment into certain games having an impact on other games. But there's no way in the world I can see a world where they would then win the Champions League.
Mm.
It's not going to happen. I mean,
Yeah.
I can tell you that it's not going to happen. For them to have a chance in the Champions League, which I do think they have,
Yeah.
and it's more than a puncher's chance. Some of the rhetoric and narratives I've heard, are PSG the better team? I do think so. But do Arsenal do one side of the game incredibly well? Yes, absolutely. So it is a case of some ways a defense against attack. Um, but if Arsenal can see that Sunday situation through, I mean, can you imagine the kind of you feel it's the old cliches. You feel 10 foot tall. You're a champion. You're heading into Budapest as a champion. Declan Rice goes
Mm.
into that game, hopefully fit and healthy in Budapest against PSG, thinking, I win this. He's not the type of player to think like this, but I win this. I'm putting myself up there as potential Ballon d'Or and all the rest of it. Now, some might see that as a stretch, but that's how players should think. They should think,
Mm.
I'm a champion now of my domestic league. I've achieved everything I want to achieve because the Premier League is the mountain, isn't it, for these players,
Mm.
professional players
Yeah.
in the Premier League. But then you get a chance to win the Champions League, the elite Premier European competition against the best team in Europe. I mean, this is what it's made of, and you can imagine Arsenal going to that game with a whole load of confidence, saying we can handle this PSG team. So you're right, and this is what I mean about the divergence of the two different outcomes. I mean, at Arsenal, I just think if they don't see Sunday through, the scrutiny, the narrative, the idea that they then got to beat a PSG team to win a trophy this season, Arteta would have the job of all jobs to try and lift that group somehow. Can you imagine the morale coming in
Mm.
on a Monday morning, Tuesday morning? I mean, they'd probably get Monday off, but can you imagine coming in on a Tuesday morning like, right, lads, we've got to get ready for arguably the biggest game of your
Mm.
lives after what has been the biggest disappointment of your lives? I mean, can you just
Yeah.
imagine the two different? How do you go from one to the other? So I'm with you. It would be incredibly damaging. But this is the table that Arsenal fought to be at. You know, the very top, fighting for the biggest trophies against arguably the greatest manager in Premier League history. So I mean, that's what you're fighting for. If you want to be relevant and not be a party to these game week 38 nerves, then fine. You know, be mid-table mediocrity. You win some, you lose some, and you can have a nice day. But if you want to be a top team, you're going to have to overcome this kind of particular threshold and cross that line. I do believe for the longest time that if they do cross that line on Sunday, I think this could be the start of something very special for this football club and for this football manager. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. The stakes could not be much higher.
I think you're right. I think you're right. I mean, if they sort of do win, which they should do, the league, it could be the next 5, 6, 7 years. I mean, I think it sort of depends on obviously what other clubs do. I mean, Liverpool obviously have
Yep.
had a shocker this year. Chelsea, they've sort of got Alonso. I mean, the jury's still out. I mean, I think he's obviously proven himself in German football, but it's still. I mean, I'm still sort of not sure whether Chelsea was the right fit. But talking about coaches, I won't sort of say it's a shock, uh, but it appears by all accounts that Guardiola will be taking charge of his last two games in the coming week or so. Obviously, I presume he would have wanted to leave on a high. I mean, he's won a couple of trophies, a couple of cups, but I presume he must have wanted to win the league.
I'm
But
not. I'm not sure why you're talking in past tense.
Well, but it's a massive game today. Uh,
Yep.
so I want you to talk about obviously sort of what sort of are City still seriously thinking that they can win the league, but also a little bit more about Guardiola, who I mean I've been occasionally critical of him, but uh, statistics don't lie. He has been one of the greatest managers, if not the greatest, that the Premier League has seen. So, some thoughts on the next two games for City, how they will be feeling, and also about Guardiola. Uh, take it
Yeah,
away.
yeah, absolutely. Just very quickly. I mean, listen, I have a lot of admiration for Man City this season, especially just because early on this season, when they were heavily reliant on Haaland, they decided that they were going to back their manager where they would have probably felt this is going to be his last season. I mean, they would have probably started to have some discussions around then. These clubs don't just, it's not knee jerk. It's fairly well planned out. We were hearing about the Maresca rumors for quite some time at Europe.
Mm,
So, if you remember, one of the main issues within the whole kind of Chelsea Maresca divorce was this supposed meeting he'd had with the Man City higher ups that caused a bit of commotion. I think there's some news today, Europe, in the papers about how Chelsea are going to be looking at, not saying legal action, but there's some furore ongoing right there. Um, but the fact of the matter is that they backed this manager in the second half of the season. They said this is a title not worth giving up for.
mm,
They've bought Semenyo, they've bought Gay, they've backed their manager as they should. He's bought them a lot of happy memories. An incredible, incredible manager. We'll speak about him in terms of where he stands within the bastions of Premier League managerial greats, perhaps on another day. But the fact of the matter is that they've really come up trumps. They've been the best attacking team, definitely in the second half of the season. They've shored up the defense. Yes, they've not won all their games, but nobody's gonna. This is not the Man City of old in terms of some of the highest levels in terms of personnel that Guardiola's had previously, and he'd be the first one to admit that. Now, this
mm,
team maybe next season, you might have said they've probably got a better chance in terms of that kind of maturity when you think about your O'Reillys, your Kusanovs, your Gahys, Shirkies, and the rest of it. You might see a bit more of a consistent performance. But the fact of the matter is, they're in there. I absolutely believe they think they can win the title. I actually think after yesterday, they'll really believe they can win the title. And I say that because Arsenal's last game's away. Now, if
mm,
they had navigated Burnley at Turf Moor yesterday and won 1-0, I think the general conclusion would be home game, Palace. Yeah, listen, it might be difficult, but it's at home. So they'll just find a way. And I would have probably felt as though it's at home. So surely you'll just have to find a way to get over the line. I just think when they'll think Arsenal haven't done this for 22 years. They already showed yesterday a little sign of nerves. Now, they were never in
Mm,
danger, but it's the
mm,
Premier League. That's a long throw, a deflection, something can happen. They'll look at it as though, let's go make this team earn it. If they go to Selhurst Park, going for their first title in 22 years, away from home, with the pressure and the lights at their brightest, let's see if that team can cross the threshold. That's how I'd be thinking if I'm Man City. And I think that's what they will be thinking. I genuinely think not only did the news yesterday, and some of those players knew already, let's be very clear, even if it hasn't been publicly discussed internally, but these guys are in the room for the last year
mm.
and bit. So all the players knew that Guardiola probably is leaving the season, but that's going to give them a bit of a fill up and a bit of a boost to make sure that the manager ends his tenure at Man City in the right way with another Premier League crown to boot. So I think they'll be buoyed by yesterday's game. I don't think they realistically thought Burnley could win or probably could even draw. They're probably counting their lucky stars. 80 minutes gone, just a goal in it. Burnley in the ascendancy somewhat as
Mm,
Arsenal retreated. This is the best you could hope for, really.
mm.
Goal difference is now a moot point. So they'll think if we beat Bournemouth and we beat them well, not so much about the goal difference because that's irrelevant, but they'll just
Yeah,
put a
yeah.
marker down in Arsenal's minds that this City team's going to wallop Villa last game of the season. So we're going to have to go there and earn it. And that's why we were discussing with my son. I don't think the Arsenal team would be watching today together, and I don't think they should be watching together because I think the myriad of emotions can be careful. You've got to be very careful of you now. On the one hand, things could go well for them today and amazing. You could all get together and have a good laugh and have a bite to eat and go out partying and all the rest of it. On the other, though, if it's going well and suddenly it doesn't go so well, you've got to prepare for arguably the biggest game of your life. So I just think it needs to be, and I think it will be kept in moderation. People probably watching individually or maybe in small gatherings, there, as is often the case in this particular type of scenario. But no, I actually think Man City will absolutely fancy. They'll think win today, and we'll put the other lot in a great deal of nerves. Guardiola, listen, just very quickly, it seems as though you're right. It's not a shock to me. You and I discussed it for quite some time. I don't think you're surprised as well. For me, the big one was you're right. When he started speaking about certain world events, I was pretty sure that he was gone because you don't speak like that in a way unless you've got something to lose, so to speak.
Mm.
He started getting a lot more vocal about certain world events and what have you. And it just felt as though he was going to bring his career at Man City to an end. And I think it's just been an incredible career, and I think they are still fighting for the Premier League title. I think he'll be desperate to get his hands on it. There's a famous statistic: he's never gone 2 years without winning the domestic league title. This is what Arteta's up against this season. But yeah, incredible news. Just one small point I would say, you real classy from Arteta yesterday was pushed and probed by the Sky Sports reporter. I don't know if you saw the interview about commenting on the Guardiola news, and he straight batted it. Given that Guardiola Man City hadn't released any news, and he said once he comes out with something, I'll give my comment on it. So I thought it was a bit of a classy gesture, not kind of indulging himself in the rumors and what have you. And ultimately, it's still a rivalry right now, at least for the next 4 or 5 days. So, yeah, listen, incredible news, big storylines in the Premier League, which is what you want heading into the final
Mm.
day of the season, Ayub. Last season, the Premier League title was done and dusted relatively early on. Liverpool's brilliance. This time, it would appear that it's going to the final day of the season. City at home, you'd fancy them at Villa, especially obviously if they have to win today. All eyes at Selhurst Park. Can Arsenal cross the finishing line? And I think there will be some drama, as is often the case with Arsenal Football Club.
I mean, terrifically exciting as a neutral. In fact, it's just been, I think, one of the best Premier League seasons for a long, long time. Obviously, I've got a vested interest because we're in the Premier League this year, so I've taken much more interest in it. But I think just as a spectacle, it's been thrilling. It's lasted up until the last game, both at the top and I'm hoping at the bottom as well. It will obviously be dependent upon what happens with Spurs
Mm.
today, and that sort of neatly sort of segues into uh, Chelsea and Spurs. I mean, it's been a thrilling battle at the bottom. We've been part of it for a long, long time. Thankfully, we were safe with 3 games to go. In part, obviously, to the excellent work that Fark has done with this
Yes.
squad. Uh, I'm delighted, obviously, as a Leeds fan, that we're not in the mix because it could have been. It could have been that we were involved right till the last game, and the last game was will be against West Ham. And I mean, I was having nightmares thinking that that would be a game that would define our destiny, and I thought I can't cope with that. So thankfully, we're not going to be in that position. But what's your thoughts? I mean, I saw the West Ham game against Newcastle. They were insipid. They were wretched. They sort of picked up later on in the game, but they
Yeah.
were absolutely awful. And it was almost a team that's accepted their fate. I must confess, I expected a lot more, and you could tell by Nuno's face that he just couldn't believe how abject they were. So, do you reckon it's just a well, I mean, it's a with Chelsea, it's a difficult one because
Mm.
are they going to turn up? I mean, people keep saying, "Oh, it's a big derby," which it is, but I don't know. I think this is a Chelsea side that I think they put all their eggs in the basket. I think they were focusing on the FA Cup. Obviously, it didn't turn out to be the case. I don't know. I mean, are they on the beach now? So, what do you think? Do you think it will be a tough game for Spurs, or do you reckon it Chelsea just won't turn up and will make it easy for them?
You're right. I think Chelsea would relish the opportunity, Ayub, to put a dent in Spurs' kind of chances of surviving in the Premier League. I actually think that there's a good chance it will still go down to the final day, and I think Chelsea can beat Spurs. I mean, Spurs need a draw effectively because of the goal difference situation, and I felt that Villa game away was the big turning point. I mean, that was a huge moment. I don't want to
Mm,
relitigate team selection and all the rest of it, but I think that's when things turned. I'm confident that if Villa play their best team, Spurs at least don't walk away with a victory that day. And I think that's when things turn. So it just
yeah.
goes to show that you needed a little bit of luck. Spurs have still had to
Mm,
go out there and earn it. Let's be honest. They didn't put
yeah.
11 kids out there. So good on them. But I think that's when it started to turn, Ayub. And I still think if Chelsea can win today, Ayub, Spurs will not fancy at a ground at home where they've not been great. Game week 38, the pressure, you've got your nearest rivals just up the road going for a Premier League title, and you're there trying to survive and stay in the Premier League. It would just be the most incredible kind of atmosphere and what have you. And listen, the games that when you look at it, I mean, Moyes, Everton. I mean, Everton are a very organised team, and the rest of it that could be a challenging. Obviously, West Ham would be playing Leeds. They'd have to win.
Mm,
Leeds have at least shown in for most of the season that they're a very competitive outfit. I keep using that word for them, but that's the word that comes to mind. They're not getting beaten by anybody convincingly, and they
apart from
survived and
Arsenal.
deserve. Apart from Arsenal, yes, who don't score many goals themselves, but that is the case, and I just think
Mm,
if West Ham got to hope that kind of final day nerves, aren't you thinking what nerves are West Ham going to have? Now, there'll be some nerves, but they think they're down and out anyway. So for
mm,
them, it's clear. You've got to win a game of football. Now, for Spurs, they're thinking, well, West Ham still need to win for us to get something. Yes, we only need a draw, but there's multiple results that could go okay for them. So do they play with the handbrake on? Everton will play with a relative amount of freedom. Is it beyond the realms of possibility that Spurs lose today and lose final day of the season? No. And is it beyond the realms of possibility that West Ham do turn up at home where you would imagine the crowd would be buoyed at least to give
mm,
them as best as they can. Now, Leeds are a very good outfit, and I think Daniel Farke will be very professional. But you're right, West Ham first off against Newcastle, insipid is the word that you used. Absolutely second off, they livened up like you wouldn't believe.
mm,
Even though Newcastle got third of you,
mm,
West Ham, they look full of beans. Somerville was driving 1-2s and all the rest of it to play. I really, really like. He won't be there next season. But there was this moment after the wonderful goal from Tati that West Ham should have scored quite a few goals, to be fair.
mm,
After that, they really started to pour it on as though the mind had cleared of you and the fog had cleared. And they were like, okay, it's very clear what we need to do. Too little, too late. Obviously, Newcastle ultimately deservedly won. So West Ham will have some regrets from that game because they had some great opportunities in the second half. But you're right, too little, too late, maybe perhaps Ayub. But from a West Ham perspective, I think if Chelsea can do a result, I just think you don't want to be fighting for Premier League survival. I mean, you've been there. Game week 38, Tottenham at home, crowd, there'll be a lot of nerves. Again, don't forget, Arsenal trying to win a title up the road. Not that maybe is relevant for those 2 hours of football, but imagine a scenario where you're in a WhatsApp group and your team goes down and the other lot are just telling you about how they've just won the Premier League title and what have you. I mean, it's just a raft of emotions after a couple of years. If you remember the famous game at Spurs where Heung-min Son went through on goal against Stefano Ortega. Do you remember the Spurs fans
Mm.
cheering when Son missed? Spurs fans doing the famous dance in the stands. So it's funny how life has come around full circle to some extent, and how the tables have turned. But yeah, listen, they've got a chance today. Get a draw. You've survived. Amazing. But I just feel Chelsea, although they've had a very difficult season, they'll be buoyed a little bit by the news that Xabi Alonso's joined. He's joined as manager, not head coach. It's the last game. It's Stamford Bridge, Ayub. So I do think they'll be trying to put on a show for their fans. For Spurs, it's clear. Get a point, you're safe. For Chelsea, get a win. And I just think that really keeps things super interesting for the final game of the season, Ayub, where I just think Spurs will be very kind of nervy, shall we say, about
Mm.
how that game should manifest itself. And again, if Everton score an early goal, that crowd is not going to be great at you in terms of the nervousness that will fill around that stadium very, very quickly. So all to play for. How do you see it, Ayub? Do you think, I mean, I imagine you think it's done and dusted, but do you at least see an avenue where Spurs probably still have to take a point in the final day of the season?
I mean, it's if I mean Chelsea, for certainly for Chelsea fans, uh, they won't accept a substandard performance against Spurs. I mean, it's a massive derby. The Chelsea fans will demand, and I think if the Chelsea players have got their ear to the ground and obviously are aware of what Chelsea fans are thinking, they'll have to put on a performance. And it is the final home game, and usually the last home games, teams do want to give their home fans a nice send off. So, and it's imperative. I mean, I think for West Ham's sake, I mean, obviously, it's absolutely imperative that Chelsea win this game, and it will make it interesting. I think I'm not sure about Everton though. I mean, they had quite a poor performance against Sunderland their last home game, so I'm not sure whether they're on the beach. I mean, it seems to be a theme amongst teams towards the end of the season. If they're safe, they probably just sort of say, well, look, there's no point sort of getting injuries, especially if you're an international player. This is where uh, there's that there's a World Cup coming up. And if you're an international player and you're
Yep.
playing for a team that's got nothing to play for, do you really want to sort of put in a challenge that might sort of perhaps jeopardize your involvement in the World Cup? So I'm not sure exactly what their motivations will be in that final game, but but I mean, I want it to be a Chelsea win today purely because it will be a really interesting last day. And I'm desperately keen for Spurs to go down. So to me, it's I would be. I've never sort of been happy for Leeds to lose, but it will be one game where I would I wouldn't mind. Uh, so if West Ham were to beat us and that sort of, I'd only accept a loss against West Ham if that meant Spurs going down. If Spurs don't go down, then obviously I would not accept a loss at West Ham. But it's fantastic as a football fan. For me, this is just the most perfect
Yeah.
sort of situation where both at the top and at the bottom, hopefully, there's something to play for. So it really will be a dramatic final day.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're right. This is what we live for. Again, when you're part of it, you get this sickly feeling in the pit of your stomach. When Kyle Walker was getting ready for a long throw, 93rd, 94th minute, I was thinking, goodness me, you've started watching this team from August in terms of this season and what have you. It all could come down to a long throw, a ricochet, something. Who knows what could happen?
Yeah.
So there is this kind of incredible anxiety. Again, my team's trying to win a title. You've been there. Your team trying to survive in the Premier League. I can just imagine that that's maybe even 10 times worse. Ayub, just very quickly, just getting back, just very quickly to tonight's game, Ayub. Maybe a quick prediction from your side. Obviously, a huge game for City. They know that they're trying to obviously send their manager off into the sunset with another trophy. That would be three trophies. this season. I feel like the game is big today in the sense of course, it's a cliche, it's obvious that it goes without saying, but just in terms of the psychological blow, because I think Arsenal will just want to stumble over this line as opposed to having to earn it on the final day. They'll look at Bournemouth and their recent run of results. A game we never spoke about was when you drew, I think, 2-2 against Bournemouth in midweek in one of the midweek
Mm.
games during this kind of amazing run, which goes to show how well Leeds have done this season. But just in terms of Bournemouth obviously still fighting for kind of Champions League spots. In some ways, there could be an interesting avenue where if Bournemouth lose and keep City interested into the league and they beat Villa, that it could actually be better for Bournemouth. But that's a very crazy theory. How do you see tonight's game specifically? Because I actually think from an Arsenal perspective, yes, you always want to just get over the line, but it feels slightly bigger than that because they haven't done it for quite some time. That they'll just want some good luck or good fortune today to go for them. City, on the other hand, will obviously want to make them as nervous as possible. How do you see just tonight's game? Do you see a well tightly contested affair? Or do you think it'll be an open game of football and that perhaps suits Guardiola's men?
I think it will be an open game, and I think City will be quite relaxed because it's almost it's one where I think the game against Everton was the hammer blow. I mean, there was a lot of pressure on that game. I think here they'll almost expect that right, we're not on the front foot. This is not in our hands. Uh, uh, and and they've been here many, many times in terms of sort of going for the title. But I think this will probably be quite a relaxed Man City. All they can do is win 2 games, and I think that's their mindset. They said, look, we'll control the controllables, win the next 2 games, and see where it takes us. So I think they'll be quite free. I think Bournemouth and Iriola play quite an open style of play. They're always on the front foot, which sort of will suit Man City. I think Man City will sort of win the game. I've got a feeling they'll win it quite comfortably because I do genuinely feel that they're not going to be. I mean, I think if it was tighter and it was in City's hands, maybe there's a little bit more sort of pressure. But it's not in their hands, and sometimes that is quite sort of liberating. It sort of frees you because, in a sense, you're sort of thinking, even if we win 2 games, it doesn't mean that we're going to win the league. So maybe we would just sort of go out there, express ourselves, and do it for Guardiola. Make sure that we win comprehensively, we win playing well, we win playing in the style that Guardiola is famous for. And I think you probably will see the best of City in these next 2 games. Whether it's enough, time will tell.
Yeah, absolutely. I fancy them to win today because I think as good as Bournemouth have been, I think City have more attacking potency than even Bournemouth. And I think in a game of football, which is what you get. And again, Bournemouth have been on a very good run. They've won some big games at the Emirates, St James's, and all the rest of it. But I think they'll come a cropper today. City are in good form, good attacking
Mm.
intent, good purpose. I think Bournemouth will
Yeah.
need a little bit of luck if they're going to get anything today, and that would set us up for an amazing grand finale. You're still sticking with Arsenal, are you, on the final day?
Yeah. I just sort of think that they've sort of they've done the hard yards and they're just fortunate. The last 2 games that they've played is one against a relegated team and in the league anymore. So I think they're just quite fortunate and they won't concede and they'll always come up with a goal. And I think that's all they need. That's all they need. It just has made it interesting because they will need to win the game, which perhaps just gives it a slightly different dynamic, which keeps it really interesting, certainly from a neutral perspective. But I'm just looking forward to it. I think it's just been a terrific season, and I just can't wait for Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully, all goes well. Let's see what tonight brings. But if it is heading into Sunday, I can't imagine what my nerves will be like. I've told the family already. If Sunday doesn't go well, don't bother me for a week or
Love
so.
it. I love
Let's see.
it.
Let's see how it goes.
Oh, absolutely superb. Always great to speak to you, Ois. I look forward to speaking to you in the next few days. Hopefully, well, I'm saying hopefully. I mean, yeah, I'm still a City man. I want it to be Guardiola wins everything. All right, okay. So until the next time, and to the audience, as always, a pleasure to be with you. Until the next time, take care. See you soon. See ya.